Hi everyone. So, as a lot of you know, we've got a new Prime Minister in Australia, and not everyone's so happy about that, especially people who supported the old guy. One of the people who supported the old guy was Peter, I'm not a leftist, Van Onselen, who's written a hilarious piece in The Australian, and I'm just going to go through that for you. Just having a look at the title, Dutton Camp, Reactionary Right Flank Fumbled their coup, which is interesting because it seems like they were actually quite successful in their coup, seeing as they got rid of Malcolm Turnbull. Anyway, let's get straight into it. The decision to blow up the Liberal Party and the government has done irreparable damage to the coalition's chances of re-election. I don't think so. Even though the poll came out today that had them way behind, I don't think it's irreparable damage to their chances at re-election. I still think that they can come back from that. If Scott Morrison has a really strong performance over the next 13 months, they are a really good chance, so long as they support the base and get back to the basics and go for cheaper energy prices, lower immigration, and cut taxes and spending. If they really hammer that, also they need to really go hard on Bill Shorten, who is absolutely horrendous. It should be pretty easy to attack Bill Shorten, and they'd be fully justified because Bill Shorten does nothing but smear and slander his political opponents, whilst being one of the most corrupt opposition leaders in history. A poor result at the looming federal election can be blamed on the Dutton camp and the reactionary right flank of the party. Notice he uses the term reactionary right. This is one of those classic leftist things that are not an argument. He may as well just call him the fascist right, or something stupid like that. It's just a smear that he's placing on people that he doesn't like in order to discredit their arguments. It's not an argument, like I said. They created this mess even if their incompetence meant they couldn't even get their man up ahead of Scott Morrison. Yeah, but their so-called incompetence still got rid of Malcolm Turnbull, who was ruining the party. He was dividing the party. No one was happy with Malcolm Turnbull unless they were directly in Malcolm Turnbull's camp and exactly on his side. Everyone else, including the base, was sick to death of Malcolm Turnbull. He was a terrible Prime Minister, and he really didn't belong in the Liberal Party. So this coup has actually succeeded in getting rid of Malcolm Turnbull, and if you measure it by that, it is definitely a success. The Dutton push was all about a small band of hard right members pitching their policy ideas at a similarly small number of lay party members, the so-called base, which is an ever-shrinking cohort of Australians who choose to join a major political party. All this is a hand wave of a large number of Australians who choose to give their preferences or their first vote to the coalition on a regular basis. He's basically saying, oh, well, they don't matter. This is a recipe to destroy the Liberal Party. There are plenty of new so-called hard right parties that are willing to take the votes of the Liberal Party as well. Now, what he's complaining about here is that his side just got rolled. Now, yes, look, Scott Morrison is sort of in Turnbull's camp a little bit, but from what I've seen so far, there is a chance that he can come around to the more conservative side, the more actually genuinely liberal side of politics. So when Van Onselen, who is not a leftist, as he claims, says this about the base, he's really just belittling people that he disagrees with. He's essentially saying that the Liberal Party can afford to ignore millions of people who vote for them and expect to still win an election. And that's just not the case. You can't ignore the people who mainly vote for you. That is a recipe for not only electoral disaster, but political suicide. The days of the mass party model are long over. The base is unrepresentative of mainstream Australia, and designing policies to appeal to it is a sure way to lose the political centre. Yeah, but the base is still representative of a large part of Australia. What you're going to call mainstream Australia, I mean, that's part of people on the right, it's part of people on the left, unfortunately. But, to simply dismiss the concerns of the people who mainly vote for you is pure arrogance. And this is what Turnbull did, and this is why people on the right, non-leftists, conservatives, libertarian, truth seekers, free thinkers, absolutely hated Malcolm Turnbull, because he just dismissed their concerns offhand and acted like they didn't exist. They acted like, well, these people are just going to vote for us anyway, therefore all we have to do is focus on getting leftist votes, and let's just go to the left, and that'll be somehow a successful strategy. Well, no, it's not a successful strategy. It might win one election, potentially it could have won two, but the cost would have been the soul of the Liberal Party, and if Malcolm Turnbull's willing to pay that, good on him, but I don't think the rest of the party were willing to pay that, and millions of people would just be pissed off if they did that. In a compulsory voting system, ignoring the centre is a likely precursor to political death. We may find out at the next election if that truism of political science is borne out. Peter Dutton would have been annihilated at an election. Morrison probably will be because of the chaos caused by Dutton's supporters. Well, it's early days yet, so who knows what's going to happen at the next election. Yeah, look, again, the first poll came out and had him way behind, but he has plenty of time to turn that around, and Bill Shorten is a horrendous individual and a potentially disastrous Prime Minister, so he has plenty of ammunition there. He has plenty of room to go back to the base and go back to the people who actually support the Liberal Party traditionally, or at least give them their preferences. I know that I did not vote for the Liberals at all in the last election. I simply donkey voted in the lower house, and in the upper house I gave it all to minor parties. I would imagine there'd be maybe a number of people who might potentially go back to the Liberal Party now. Yeah, look, the two-party preferred is not ideal. There are a number of reasons for that. I doubt it's going to last for all that long. I think Morrison certainly has a chance to at least regain a lot of that ground and potentially win the next election. He's just got to do the right things. As for this idea of winning over the centre, if you understand what Peter, I'm not a leftist, Van Onselen is actually saying here, he's saying essentially that you can completely fob off the people that mainly vote for you and simply go for the disengaged central people. So by centre, what he really means are people who flip their vote back and forth, who tend to not really be politically engaged and only come around and vote and care about the election, when they're voting, which is once every 3 years. Well, twice every 3 years if you count state and federal politics. So the idea that you have to appease the centre, no, it's completely wrong. The ALP don't appease the centre. All the ALP do is appease their hard left base and attack the opposition while trying to win over these people who are disengaged, who flip their vote back and forth on a regular basis. So the ALP, would you ever see the ALP coming over to the right in order to win the centre? Of course they wouldn't. So when Peter, I'm not a leftist, Van Onselen says that they've got to win the centre over, what he's really saying is come over to the left, come over to the left, you have to move to the left. Just ignore the people that normally vote for you. Come over to the left, come over to the left. Yeah, he's using manipulative language, but that is ultimately what he's saying. No, the way to win an election, the way to win is to have great, really good, solid policies that people can get around, that the main core of support that you get will support, ironically, whilst selling that message to the people who are in the middle and go back and forth and may not really care about politics all that much. So it's about appeasing the base, making the base happy, and selling your policy to the people who can be sold to. It's not about being wishy-washy and going over to the left just because you can take your own base for granted. The transaction costs of changing leaders are all too often underestimated. Yeah, but they didn't seem to matter all that much when Gillard was knifing Rudd, and when Rudd was knifing Gillard, and when Turnbull was knifing Abbott. You seem to completely have forgotten that Turnbull actually knifed Abbott. And here's the thing, Abbott actually came out today and said that the time of this backstabbing is actually over. And I think that's great. I think regardless of the polls, Scott Morrison needs to take the Liberal Party to the next election, and if they get wiped out, they get wiped out. So yeah, changing leaders has a cost. However, sometimes it is necessary. Sometimes the cost of not changing leaders is far greater than the cost of actually doing it. And in this case, that's the truth. Because Malcolm Turnbull, he was destroying the Liberal Party. He was moving it to the left. He was alienating people who traditionally vote for the coalition. And you know, the minor parties were really enjoying that. As you can see in the polls, the minor parties are now about 25% of the vote. So yeah, Malcolm Turnbull, very, very good thing that he's gone. Getting rid of him was the right thing to do. Okay, so the rest of the column is just an extremely spiteful and bitter affair with Peter, I'm not a leftist, Van Onselen. I'm doing a lot of air quotes, I know, because it's just an absolutely full of shit article. You should have a read of it, it's worth a laugh. He's definitely not happy about Malcolm Turnbull being rolled, unlike people who traditionally vote for the Liberal Party, which is a good thing. We don't want leftists to be happy when good things happen, and Malcolm Turnbull going is a good thing, despite the fact that the first poll was so negative for Morrison. At least Malcolm Turnbull is gone. So I'm just going to skip to the end of the article because he really finishes it off well. The Prime Ministership is a prize that can turn the most clear-headed political strategist into a wide-eyed figure from the Lord of the Rings desperate to get their hands on that ring of power. Which is exactly what Malcolm Turnbull did. Malcolm Turnbull sniped from the sidelines, he attacked Abbott over and over again, and then eventually he rolled in. Malcolm Turnbull was not originally he wasn't originally trying to get into the Liberal Party. He first tried to get into the Labour Party. The guy did not belong in the Liberal Party. All he wanted was power. And when he saw his opportunity to become Prime Minister, by God did he take it. And he did it by sniping and attacking and basically dividing the Liberal Party in half between his camp and the Conservative camp. So this ultimately can be seen as balancing the books. So Turnbull rolled Abbott, and now Turnbull's been rolled, so now the Liberal Party can call it square, and they don't have to roll their leaders anymore. It is hard to believe that after all the recent history that preceded this week's events, so many Liberals acted the way they did. Really, what history was that? Was that the history of Turnbull knifing an elected Prime Minister? What about that history? Remember, Malcolm Turnbull, he knifed Tony Abbott because Tony Abbott lost 30 news polls in a row. Malcolm Turnbull then lost 37 news polls in a row, and after 31 or 32, he was losing them by just as much as Tony Abbott was. What's to say that Abbott wasn't able to turn that around? He might not have turned it around in time for the next election. Who's to know? But Malcolm Turnbull rolled him, and we never got a chance to have our say on Tony Abbott's leadership. Despite knowing damage wreaked by tearing down a Prime Minister, many Liberals chose that course of action anyhow. For a second time, by the way. Again, don't forget that Turnbull was the one who originally did that, and he really just got his comeuppance. Funny how you don't really seem to care about that little fact. It's interesting. Their penance will likely be the outcome of the next election, even though they didn't get the Dutton Prime Ministership they wanted. They were probably going to lose anyway under Turnbull, so who gives a crap? At least now they will be able to say, well, at least we got rid of Malcolm Turnbull, who was an extremely divisive figure. He was not representative of the people who mainly vote for the Liberal Party. He was a leftist, and he knows it. He loved the green schemes. He loved that socialistic rubbish. And he wasn't really a true Liberal at heart. Again, he wanted to join the Labour Party. He tried to join the Labour Party first, and when he got his chance to become the Prime Minister of Australia, it didn't really matter which party he was in. He was going to take that opportunity, and he moved the party to the left and basically made it very, very similar, and there was very, very little difference between the Liberal Party and the ALP. So now maybe the Liberals will actually have a chance to offer a real choice, and even if they lose, at least they haven't lost their soul. They may actually be able to save the party, which was probably going to die under Turnbull. The election was always going to be a tough one to win for the coalition. As mentioned, Turnbull was permanently hamstrung by his right flank. You mean he was actually having to represent the people who generally vote for his party? Notice the whining here. Oh, he was hamstrung by his right flank. Oh, I actually had to represent the people who voted for me. Oh no. Poor Malcolm Turnbull couldn't play the hard left greenie that he really wanted to be. Peter Van Onselen actually thinks he's not a leftist. He actually thinks he's a reasonable individual. He's obviously not. Shorten, whatever his faults, and there are many, many faults in Bill Shorten, is a master strategist Well, actually, he's a master smearer. And it's funny because before you were saying, oh, you have to win the centre, whereas Bill Shorten, all he really does is appease his own base while attacking the opposition or attacking the government while he's in opposition. And retaining government with a single seat majority is incredibly difficult. Actually, retaining government is always incredibly difficult, especially in the modern era where it's politics 24/7 for a lot of people. There's a 24/7 news cycle, and people are constantly switching allegiances, and there are new parties, and there are new ideas and new arguments. It's extremely difficult to win an election. It was always difficult to win an election, no matter how much your majority was. Throw in the chaos within the Nationals courtesy of Barnaby Joyce's unravelling and the constant sniping by reactionaries, and Turnbull was fighting enemies and difficulties from all directions. Funny that, seeing as Turnbull started this when he knifed a Prime Minister. You reap what you sow. You truly reap what you sow. Turnbull had absolutely no loyalty for Tony Abbott when Tony Abbott was the Prime Minister. Turnbull sniped from the sidelines, he attacked Abbott, and he eventually rolled him. Tony Abbott, who was elected by the Australian people in a landslide to be their Prime Minister. Malcolm Turnbull has no leg to stand on. He cannot complain about getting rolled. Peter Van Onselen, you cannot complain about Turnbull getting rolled. Turnbull got exactly what he deserved. The Liberal Party were completely right to get rid of him. Dutton not becoming Prime Minister, you know what? The Conservative part of the party, they might not have got 100% of what they want, but the main objective was to get rid of Turnbull. And seeing as that was the main objective, they flat out succeeded. Thank you very much for listening. Go check out all my other stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Most of my stuff isn't exactly like this. I do animated videos, I do response videos, I do essays, all this kind of thing. So click that subscribe button. Don't forget to comment, like, share, all that kind of nonsense. And I'll see you when I see ya.